everybody? Andy Jacob here with the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. You know from watching the show, and by the way, we love all the viewers, all the people that come and watch the show on a regular basis. We want to thank you. But of course, you know from watching the show regularly that we love transformation, and we love companies that are doing transformational things with their clients and really changing the way in which people's behavior changes in companies, because that's so important these days. And of course, when we think about a behavior platform, we think about a change of behavior platform. There's one name that really stands out that comes to mind, and his name is Mr. Larry Mohl. And Larry is the founder and what we call the Chief Transformation Officer at Rali. And of course, he is an experienced innovator. We call him a change management executive because he and his team do such great things with behavior with so many large and small to mid-sized companies. It's incredible. So we have so many questions. Larry, welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's super great to have you. You have a great team that got us all ready for this interview,
Yes.
of course. And I know we're going to talk about your team in a little bit. But before we get started, let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet like we always do, as you know from watching the show. Tell us about Rali or GetRali.com, and then we're going to get into it.
Yeah, so Rali comes from the work that I did over, like you said, many, many years in different organizations, helping the organization to drive change, focused on initiatives that the company's really trying to drive, where those initiatives, to be successful, really have to have some element of mindset and behavior shift. And to do that, you know, lots of the ways that that's done in the past are about sending things out to people. So really what I wanted to do from my experience was figure out, is there a way where we can really create change that's scalable, it's measurable, and it's lasting, so that really we do end up shaping and changing employee behaviors, and through doing that, actually shape the culture and the experience employees are having in the organization. So Rali does that, like you said, with lots of different size companies and all kinds of industries, and really doing really incredible work with a lot of amazing people.
Yeah, you have such a great attitude. You're one of the good guys. I mean, your comprehensive change experience platform is really for organizations of any size. They can be small to mid to Fortune 100 companies. It's really an advanced digital engagement system, really for any company's initiatives or their content, coaching, community. I mean, you name it. Yep. And you couple it with intelligent analytics that we love so much. But let's talk about it. What types of companies reach out to you, Larry, and what's the big question that they ask or the big problem they're having with the company?
Yeah, so think of it this, there's a lot that's gone on in the last couple of years, right, Andy, with this little thing called the pandemic and all of the issues that have happened in the workplace. And what you found over the last couple of years is, company cultures tend to be a little bit fragile right now. And there's a lot going on between, should I get people to come back to the office? Should I let them stay at home? So you've got cultural underlayment that's happening right now. Many companies are trying to figure out, what is that culture? What do we believe in? And how do we get people to stay connected to us? And again, drive performance forward, but do it in a way that really engages people, right? Because I can push out projects, but am I really engaging people? So companies, as you know, every year they go through a strategic planning process and they identify these really important initiatives that they're trying to do. I can tell you one of the big areas that people are focused on right now is the whole area of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And that essentially is a mindset and behavior type of, I wouldn't call it a problem. Let's call it it's an opportunity that organizations have to shape a culture where at the end of the day, if people belong, they feel like they belong, they stay, they do better work, they're more creative, all that kind of good stuff. The question is, how do I set that foundation for a company of 15,000, 20,000? Am I going to run workshops for 100 people and hope it sticks? That's what I used to try and do. And it's just very, very, very difficult to do that in any period of time that's going to matter. So companies reach out to us as it relates to these kinds of change initiatives that end up where they really understand that it's a mindset and behavior, could be building cultures of quality, could be building a culture of inclusion, could be a culture of, of employee experience or customer experience, right? So these are the kinds of things that we're helping companies with.
Yeah, Larry, it's real interesting because Rali really goes beyond what other learning solutions offer, because you deliver this, what I call unified community-driven experience, which is really designed to transform behaviors and accelerate great change. But when we think about it, companies sometimes try and do it on their own, of course.
Yeah,
and a lot of times these initiatives fail miserably. What,
unfortunately,
are the reasons why these companies really, fail on their own?
Yeah, so there's a couple really key things. One is, when companies try and do this, there is a certain amount of mindset around the approach that works. And again, there's a lot of companies doing a lot of wonderful things, but in general, companies take a change as almost like a project mentality. Like it's like a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and magically it all occurs, right? And the issue with that is that change is messy. It's a messy thing. And so instead of saying step 1, step 2, step 3, there's definitely phases, but the questions start to become, how do we engage people in a journey over time instead of the thinking that there's events? Like it's an event, change is an event. So part of the big thing is helping people think about it more like a journey than an event. The big thing is that what my research discovered was you have to be able to do 3 things in order for people to really grow and progress during change. And we call it learn, do, inspire. So the methodology that, as you said, was built into this unifying platform takes groups of people, which is the other big insight. Many times organizations go after change. Like, if I can get Andy to change and I can just make that happen like 100,000 times, woohoo, we're going to be great, right? Yeah. The issue is, what I found was that change propels forward or is held back by the quality of the culture in the team you're a member of. So think about the team that you're a member of. Do people trust each other? Do they get along? Is the manager supporting you? Are they also challenging you? What's happening there? So what Rali does, it takes people in this learn, do, inspire journey in groups. They could be cross-functional, they could be intact work teams, but people are experience this in groups, and they're having conversations, they're coaching each other, and they're going through, and quite frankly, holding each other accountable to do the things that they said they would do, to practice what they're learning, not just, watch a video and say, that was interesting, I'm going to go back to my, my day job. So a lot of times what we're trying to do is kind of fight against that tide of, we're just going to put people in a couple of workshops, a couple of events, and hope they all change, right? So I hope that helps to get under the covers a little bit in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Larry, because you have this whole idea, this learn, do, inspire. And I love that so much, because when you follow that, I'm going to call it a proprietary methodology that you and your team have put together, it really creates a powerful performance improvement loop. And I want to talk about that with you. Let's talk about that improvement loop, and why is that important to make a lasting impact for a company?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that. I mean, what's really, like, again, if you take the attitude, the change is actually an evolving process versus a static step 1, step 2, step 3. It goes back to the analytics you were talking about, Andy. So because we've got people in an experience that might be in for 3 months or 6 months, whatever that is, we're collecting a lot of data about what they're actually doing new in their role. We're getting a lot of data because we're doing back-end AI on the conversation that's occurring. So there's a lot of discussions that are being triggered. So I can tell if this one group is in a mood where they're like, we're okay about this change, or we can understand from their conversation whether they're, kind of happy, sad, or neutral. We can also, because there's a lot of polling questions and certain things that are interacting with, we can ask them questions about what's working for you, what's not working for you, what support do you need? So imagine you've got a community that's not just getting delivered to, it's actually talking and you're listening. So you actually created a place where you can listen. So if you're smart, you'll listen, right? And so based on that, to your point, then because you're listening, you can start to measure and understand, This group is a little off track. So what do we need to do to help them? This group's right on track. Let's help them out. So it becomes more of a continuous improvement loop. Back when I was at Motorola for a long time, I helped with getting the company to embrace continuous improvement. And I just built those principles into the idea of the platform.
Yeah, it's super cool. And of course, you said something very interesting, Larry. You said change is messy. And we see that all over the entrepreneurial spectrum, of course. And with your Learn, Do, Inspire protocol and methodologies, it sort of fixes and changes the change is messy sort of conversation. I love the idea of the back end AI, of course. But one thing that you're a real believer in is the state of mind and the way in which state of mind can change sort of an entire enterprise, if you will, just by putting into place the right situation, the right group components, the right opportunities to have a good state of mind. Let's talk about state of mind as it relates to what your offer is, Larry.
Yeah. So, this whole idea of mindset and behavior, right? I mean, we all have these mindsets that we bring in. And in many ways, our culture may have, whatever the culture is in the company, may have shaped your mindset. For example, at Motorola, after we established a solid mindset of continuous improvement, everybody just talked about like, okay, this is good now, but what are we going to do to continuously improve? So it became a cultural symbol and expected of you, a norm, that you were going to look at a project not as a one-time thing. You were going to do, learning reviews. You were going to make continuous improvement a part of your everyday life. What we help do is that exact thing with this Learn, Do, Inspire methodology. Like you said, the way that the media is put together, the way questions are asked, and the way that the community gets engaged helps us to confront in a good way, in a positive way, our current mental model, our current way of thinking, and then give us opportunities to maybe think differently. One of my greatest partners is a gentleman named Vincent Brown. He does a lot of work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he has this great thing that he calls the power of the pause. And it's basically, if you feel yourself, in a weird place and you're struggling in a conversation, and hit the pause button and examine your own mental models, and just see, is the way that I'm thinking about this. The second thing we know is that behaviors are a lot, depend on people's beliefs, their mental models, and kind of the environment they're finding in. So this idea of a loop, we call it, the learn, do loop. Some people have to think about things a lot before they'll do anything, right? Some people want to do something and then it makes them think differently. The idea is it doesn't matter where you start from. What's really important for adults is that you learn, you do, you reflect, and then you get feedback from others about what you're learning. So that starts to change your thinking a little bit. And then it becomes more solid the more action you take that aligns with your new thinking framework. And so the platform, like you said, the secret sauce has all this stuff built in. So you can put any content in and this engine starts to run as you design it through.
Wow, I love it. The power of the pause. I may have to steal that. That's great.
I'm giving that one to Vince.
That's great. Larry, let's talk about sort of how it happens. So you have a company, they heard about all the great work you're doing at Rali. You get a lot of referrals coming in, a lot of companies talking about what you're doing there. And they have the first conversation with you or a member of your team. What's the integration look like? Do you bring people in? Do you bring technology? And what's it look like for a small to mid-sized company to get involved? What's that look like?
Yeah. And so it's really interesting. So to your point, Andy, when we start having conversations with people, part of what we do is we actually we offer to them the ability to run a workshop, which myself or one of my team actually runs for them, no charge, even if they don't do business with us, okay? And here's why. As the ex-buyer in this space, which is what I was, the biggest thing that maybe people don't understand is that a lot of times these company initiatives aren't really that well formed. And there's not necessarily alignment between the key stakeholders, about what is it, what success look like, what behavior change are we trying to make, all of these important things that you really need to have kind of lined up before you would actually start implementing any technology. And having, done this a few times and made those mistakes in my own companies, what we wanted to do is make sure that the companies we're working with, have the chance to get aligned. And so we actually run these initiative alignment workshops, 2 or 3 hours. From that, then we get them to shape the initiative and answer a lot of these important questions. We get a chance to show them, here's how Rali could help you. Because the other thing, Andy, is we have content that's pre-built into the platform from 25 to 30, almost 30 now, signature nationally recognized thought leaders in different areas that business care about. So we can get a company jump started. So they may say, oh, the way you can help us is to do this leadership journey on building character for this group of people where we really need to make that change happen because we're seeing these kinds of things in the business. So it's basically having them through this workshop experience understand and identify what they need. Then to your point, we form a team on their end, which is their change guidance team. And then we have a few people and I get called in to help on the change management, but my lead implementation experience person works with them to actually formulate a plan. And our technology is, it's SaaS-based, it's cloud-based. And so we just kind of integrate into their current ecosystem. And, if they're using a journey that's pre-built, we could have somebody turned on in a day, but they wouldn't be ready, right? So it's getting them ready to go. And then we start going.
Yeah, I love it. Of course, you mentioned the workshop. That's one of the things that's very unique about Rali's approach that other organizations don't provide. And of course, there's a number of other things that you have that are really unique to Rali. Of course, you maximize the chance of success in a great way. Let's talk about the ways in which you do that. And then we have some follow-up questions for you.
Sure. So part of it, like you said, is being a guide for the people that are trying to, one of the things that I think people listening out there might, if you're either internal to a company or an entrepreneur trying to drive an initiative in your own, burgeoning company, is being a change leader, Andy. It's hard. You're kind of part, you bug people. You're an emotional coach. You're on the hook for things. You have to manage relationships. It's very, very difficult. And so part of what we do in our platform is put the things that a change leader needs all in one pane of glass. And this just lets them take a big breath and say, I can actually see what's happening with people in my organization as they progress through this Learn to Inspire and these other assets that they're looking at, so that I know where they need help. Then the second thing I would say is that I spent about the last 6 or 7 months formulating what I call my changeability methodology, and it's basically 4 factors that we can measure. That if you score well on these factors, I can tell you that your probability of change success is going up. And we can also then give that change leader the indications of where it's not going well and where they can specifically, based on specific drivers of change success, based on this model that we built, this validated model, they can intervene, or the platform can suggest things based on scores that are changing within this index that we've developed. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the validated model makes a lot of sense. I call you a change leader. So Larry, let me ask a question, because we look at some companies where they have a bifurcation between the way in which the leaders think and the way in which they want their team to think. In other words, there's not a unified approach. And we always say that leadership starts at the top. Yeah. Is it impossible if the leaders and the people who are working with the leaders don't see things the right way or in the same way? Is that an impossible and insurmountable task to get through?
I wouldn't say it's insurmountable. It's definitely more challenging. I mean, I'm not going to lie, right? It's more challenging. What's interesting about it is all that is required of a leader. This is going to sound simple but hard. Okay, is to listen. And so here's what's interesting, right? Once you put people in community on a persistent application like Rali, where everything that's happening is visible, it's transparent, it's persistent. And if the leader is willing to listen, then they're going to learn so much about what's going on in their culture and their organization and get so many ideas that will help them pay attention. Now, leaders have the choice to steer left and steer right, right? Absolutely have the choice to steer left and steer right. And our whole adage is just basically, are you doing change to people or doing change with people? And so the leaders that do change with people end up getting people aligned, because there's this little thing that I call process justice. And it's this little thing that says, if I believe that you used a fair process, you included me in conversation, I got to ask my questions, I got to raise my objections, because these objections are really worthy, right? And you heard that, and then you say, okay, I'm hearing you, and there's some reasons we're going to go this direction, then most people can at least be compliant. Many will be committed. So people really want this idea to weigh in, to buy in. And that's what fails a lot with change, Andy, is that the leader is like, I got to get this done by next Thursday. And it's a kind of like command and control decision. That will get things done. It really will. My problem today with how fragile the workplace is, will people stay? Will they feel inspired and engaged, or defeated and disenchanted? Right. And will they end up leaving then, and so, or just staying and, as everybody says, staying and quitting, which, is a thing. So I hope that helps a little bit, but people will align, but you have to create a construct for it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Of course, for the entrepreneurs watching the show, the C-level executives, maybe you're running a business or have a company. If you don't have alignment, if your change platform, so to speak, isn't even in existence, and you don't believe in the way into buy-in or to change with people, you really cost yourself a lot of money. I mean, net profit for sure, because you have constant turnover.
That's right.
And that constant turnover costs you money, because there's a lot of money that goes out to hire quality candidates. So one thing for the people watching the show, when you hire Larry and you hire the people, of course, at Rali, it's really improving your bottom line. It's improving your net profitability, because what they change with the people is a mindset that perhaps will help them stay with the company and want to work at that company for a longer period of time. Isn't that right, Larry?
That's right. The ultimate goal is continuous performance improvement, right, Andy? But you can, so performance, anybody can get better performance for one quarter, right? I mean, you can however you measure performance, right? The question is, can you make that a continuous thing? To do that, these behaviors need to, at some point, these positive or productive behaviors need to get embedded in your culture, in the experience of the employees. And that's hard to do. That's just hard to do. Most people give up, or, it's just, and unfortunately, like you said, I mean, McKinsey, I think, notes about 80% of change efforts fail. A lot of people have probably experienced change where it just regresses to the mean, back to where they were before. And, this is not easy stuff. So it's a way of just staying with it that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, and is easier to manage over time.
Yeah, I love it. I call you an intrapreneur. I mean, you're really an expert at driving change from within.
That's right.
Disrupting and reshaping really deeply rooted company cultures with your platform. It's a great idea. Now, before I let you go, we have to talk about entrepreneurship. Okay, Larry, I'm going to bring you back on the show. I already know I have so many more questions for you, but we've only allotted a certain amount of time, and you've only cut out a certain amount of time.
For sure.
For the younger entrepreneurs,
yes,
watching the show, maybe they're having a tough time. Maybe they're hitting a roadblock. Maybe they're seeing something that they haven't seen before, and they're kind of freaking out a little bit in the frame. What can you share with them from your position about what it takes to get through those tough times and create a new and improved learning experience that really can change their company in the future from going through that tough time?
Yeah, and I have, as you know, as from our conversations, I've been through many of those. myself. I mean, I started my entrepreneurial journey at age 55, right? So, I was in companies for a long, long time and have had very many seasons with this company that I founded. And what I would say is, this is going to sound maybe a little bit trite, but you have to convince yourself first before you convince anybody else that the purpose that you have, the world needs it. Like the world, like you are, I would call it productively upset at the way things are. Like once you get productively upset with the way things are, then you have this energy that says, I want to step into that and I want to make something happen there. And I want to have an impact on people way beyond myself. And that, if you can find that light and hold on to that light, that will take you through a lot. The second thing is they say that entrepreneurs don't run out of time. They run out of money. They run out of energy. The second thing is to really take care of yourself in terms of, and the way that everybody has their own way to do that. But I find it through relationships with people that are also, going through similar things, where I can lean on and they can lean on me. So forming your own little circle community of people that you have as, your little guide group, if you will, that's really, really helpful. And then the third thing I would say is that the other thing that's really important about entrepreneuring is that there was a big study that was done. One of the biggest factors about early stage company success was timing. Now, I must say, when I started my company in 2016, I was ahead. I was too far out. Not that my thoughts were, but the market wasn't quite ready for what I have. So just think about, where is a place that you can go where they're ready for you? Because the timing is everything. Go find your lead. I was very fortunate to find several lead customers that were like, we get this, we want this is where we want to go. And they helped pull me along to give me the space to help the market catch up, if you will. So find your lead ones and then build on that.
Wow. Great advice for the people watching the show. Rewind what Larry just said and listen to it and maybe put it up on your dream board. I mean, you have to be upset about the way things are and you want to change those things dramatically. I love it so much. I mean, Larry, this has been a great interview. I already know we're bringing you back on the show. We're going to call it 30 Minutes with Larry. It's fantastic.
Anytime,
I want to thank you so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series to talk about Rali. And of course, it's getrally.com and rally your team, rally your forces. And Larry, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Andy. Appreciate it much and a pleasure.